Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of FX Forecasting with us. If you enjoy our episodes, don't forget to thumbs up, comment and subscribe. Today we're going to be talking about how did Bumble IPO go. We're also going to be covering some of our FX pairs that we're going to be watching this week, some of the predictions that we made last week, how they've panned out, and then Elliot will be going over the fundamentals and also covering indices and news that we need to watch that's coming out this week. So stay tuned, guys. Let's get you kick-started for your week in the markets. So let's start off with the Bumble IPO and talk about exactly how that performed and what results our viewers and individuals that got involved at an institutional level came out with when it opened on the market.
The women-centric dating app Bumble is a hit on Wall Street.
Bumble's public debut is expected in just a moment, pricing at $43 last night, with latest indications there at $73.
You can see shares are up better than 80%, just shy of $78, again priced at $43.
Bumble's CEO is making history with this debut.
Well, this week, Whitney Wolfe Herd became one of the few women in the world who can now add billionaire to her title.
So guys, honestly, we was involved with the Bumble IPO and what a move it was. This is what we've been talking about getting involved in IPOs at the institutional level has so much more advantage than getting in when the market actually opens. So for those that got involved, congratulations. Obviously the IPO, you got in at the price of roughly $43. The opening price was at $76, which is just absolutely crazy. Over a 75% plus move in valuation from IPO to hitting the live market. So Freedom 24 obviously allowing the little guy there to be able to get involved at an institutional level and get involved in these IPOs. So absolutely amazing. So for those that don't know about Bumble and why we called out Bumble, Bumble is a dating and networking app provider. It's launched its IPO on the NASDAQ on the February the 10th. The Bumble app has got over 42 million users from 150 countries. Such a large user base. It's really added to the value of Bumble. Bumble app has a freemium model where you can download the app for free, but you have all the add-ons and the bolt-ons which add up and the user ends up, paying for it. And this is really good for Bumble as that's how they generate their revenue. So out of those 42 odd million users, there's around 4 million that are actually paying to use the app with their add-on functions and so on and so forth. So you can see how the model is very scalable based on users adopting that, enjoying the app, and then going on and paying for it. So benefits, get involved with Freedom 24 because obviously you can get into IPOs like Airbnb, like Bumble, and you can get the benefit of getting in at an institutional level rather than waiting for it to actually open on the market. And in this case, we would have benefited by 70% plus. And as we saw on the previous one at Airbnb, that was just an absolute crazy move as well. Freedom 24 have done over 182 IPOs. They have been recommended by Freedom Finance analysts since 2012. They've got an average return of 72% at the end of the IPO lockup period, which is amazing to see how much return that these guys are generating. So these guys have got a massive amount of IPOs. We're going to cover some of them just over the period of this year. We have got Viant, the IPO. The IPO price was at $25. It actually opened at $44. So that was an opening price increase there of 76%, which is nuts. For those that don't know Viant Technology, they launched their IPO on February the 9th. Viant delivers a platform used for media and ad buying on website, mobile applications, TV streaming services, digital billboards. But overall, that was an insane move. We've got a lot more than that. We had a biopharma company called Vor, which was a US company working on R&D for innovative cancer treatments. The IPO price for that was $18. It opened at $42. So that was a 133% move that we could have benefited from getting involved from an IPO level. We also have got On24, which is a company that's out of San Francisco, focused on developing webinar and virtual event platform. It launched its IPO on February the 2nd, which is absolutely mental that they've got over 1,900 customers from 40 different countries. Since inception, they raised over 72 mil from Goldman Sachs, Gold Hill Capital, US venture partners, and other venture investors. The IPO price was $50 and that opened at $77. So that was a 54% increase on 24. I can just keep on going on these as well. We've got Qualitrix IPO'd at $30. It listed on the markets at 41. That's around 39%. And then we've got Immunocore IPO'd at $26. Open price of $41. That's a 57% increase. The list just keeps on going, really. Sana Biotechnology IPO'd at 25, opened at 35. That's a 40% increase. So we can really see how buying in on these IPOs from an early stage and getting in at the institutional level is beneficial. Most of these positions have performed absolutely awesome. And the trick is to make sure you get hold of these shares at that institutional level before they hit the market to benefit from it. So hats off to Freedom24 for being able to allow us as retail traders to get involved from an institutional level and buy up these amazing opportunities. Again, like I said, they've done so many IPOs, over 180, with the average return being over 70%. So we can see here from an investment level, this is pretty decent returns, and we can join the big guys such as Goldman Sachs and so on and so forth that are buying into these IPOs. So guys, I'll put a link in the description for Freedom24. Go check it out. Go check out the upcoming IPOs. Let's hope they're as exciting as some of the ones that we have seen already, such as Bumble and Airbnb, and join these institutions in getting some great shares. Check them out below. So let's get started with FX forecasting and what we're looking at this week. This is actually last week's prediction that we had in place. Said the price would come up here and then start to sell off. Was right for the best part of the week, and I think over the last couple of days we've seen price just start to pull back. So this was the previous week's analysis. This is today's analysis. So we had that initial sell-off there that we can see. I've had price come back up now and start to bounce back up at our turning point level. So we are expecting sellers to actually come into this and drive price down. My only caution will be if we take out the most recent bar high and also this swing as well. So just a bit of caution around this, but definitely still looking for shorts on euro against the US dollar. Because of the way that the price has been moving, I'm actually more focused on the higher time frame on this. But again, if we look at the 15 minutes, we can see here that we've had very much a lot of whipsawing with the price coming back. The price is still in a downtrend. We have got price actually rejecting R2 in this longer trend line that, if you was to zoom out, goes a bit further back and look to take this position short to the downside. So euro dollar still bearish, but again, maybe not trading on the 15 minutes at this moment in time just because of how choppy it is, and focusing more on the hourly time frame. So that's euro dollar. When we look at pound against the US dollar, our prediction was pretty much spot on. We did actually anticipate a bit of a pullback in between the two moving averages here, but we didn't really get that. We had it just ping and touch the 8 moving average, and then it carried on and rallied to the upside. I think we've had such a steep move, we should be sort of anticipating a natural pullback, whether or not that actually, the moving averages catch up and it's not as far back as we anticipate, but we're still looking for bullish positions on pound against the US dollar. So when we look at the 15 minutes, we've actually had, what I call like deeper pullbacks. That's why I was focused last week and the week before on the hourly time frames. And you can see here, this is more of a deeper retracement, actually made the moving averages cross over before breaking the sort of, resistance downwards trend line to the upside, technically speaking. We had an absolute textbook entry today in the early hours, which was where price was rejecting this previous high over here on the 16th of February. On the Friday, on the 19th of February, price came down, touched it, and then rallied all the way up. So going into Monday, we're expecting price to pull back a little bit, move back to the pivot point, and then looking to jump back in on this to the upside and join those buyers on that momentum that we're seeing at the moment. And I think it's a very good level that we've seen here. We're seeing that at roughly 1.395, which was the previous rejection point. But now we've broken through that 1.4 level. It'll be interesting to see if that turns into support later this week. US dollar yen is a really interesting one as well. This was our previous week analysis. So, when price came back down to moving averages, we predicted the price would carry on now rallying back to the upside. We had that sell-off, the pullback back to the moving averages. Initially, we had that rejection off of this previous high. And our prediction was pretty much spot on. We said that we're going to expect this to carry on going up. So this is actually where we are this week. So, here we said we're looking to buy. And then for the rest of that week, we pretty much saw 4 out of 5 days, huge amount of buying. We saw it come up and test this previous level over here, this 106 level. And now we've had 3 days worth of selling. So what do we anticipate going into this week ahead? We're kind of expecting to see some a buyer's day sort of form around this 21 moving average and create a higher low before we then see price increase and carry on moving to the upside with the stronger dollar there. So we're very interested in this position because we have seen, again, a lot of momentum starting to come into the upside ever since Joe Biden became president. We've seen that sort of turnaround on US dollar against the Japanese yen. We've seen price move a lot higher. So we're looking for buys on US dollar against the Japanese yen on the smaller time frames. So when we jump down to that smaller time frame, we can kind of see how when the trend had transitioned, lots of lovely cluster entries on the buy side going with our multiple time frame analysis. Cluster entry here, nice back up to the previous highs. Again, on the 16th of February, we had a nice deep sell-off back to the pivot point, also 200 moving average rejection, also off of previous days R1, and pretty much off of the 12th of February highs as well. So great sort of support point and bounce level to join back into the market. And everyone that took that cluster entry, I mean, look, it went from the pivot all the way up to R3 and then even higher on that. So that was fantastic. After that, we did see price slowly break down and we saw the trend transition to the upside, from the upside to the downside. And we're now seeing this longer term trend still in play currently. Whether or not that stays in play going into this week's a different matter, but we are still waiting for buyers to come back in, wait for the trend to switch over on the 15 minutes and then join back in onto the buy side. So bias is very much the same, although we are in a transition period where we are waiting for price and this sell-off to slow down on US dollar yen to join back in onto the buyers. Again, if we're going over pound, we are expecting pound to have a little bit of a sell-off after a strong rally, whether that be a day or two before we see that transition. And Euro US dollar still looking for sell positions. So I'm going to hand it over to Elliot, who will cover this week and what we're looking at.
Cool, cheers, Sam. So yeah, this week's been a bit of a week of two halves. Start of the week, we saw a strong start for indices. Monday was President's Day, so US markets were closed. Obviously, we had out of trade normal trading hours open. We saw strong starts of the week, especially for Ftse 100. It broke back through that level we were speaking about on last week, and then took it all the way back up to 6,800. However, since then, we've seen a bit of selling come into the market. The buy the dippers are still active, and they've rallied it back up towards Friday's highs. So yeah, interesting to see. Obviously, buyers are still in control at the moment, but at the moment here we're in Friday session, so it'll be interesting to see how the week ends. If we see some new highs in the US markets, could mean more rallying next week. So interesting one to look out for. But yeah, the key support levels are holding for now, which is primarily meaning that bulls are in control. As Sam spoke about, we saw cable hit 1.4. This is sort of the highest level we've seen since 2018. So back in, I think, March 2018. And it's only the second time it's reached this level since Brexit. So quite a key level we're at now, 1.4, 1.42. It'll be interesting to see if that strength continues. So I had some data out on Friday morning. Sort of, again, two different flip sides. So retail sales, pretty terrible. Both worse than expected numbers, so minus almost 6% year on year compared to only minus 1.5, which is expected. and then month on month minus 8% compared to the minus 2.5% expected. So I don't know why the expected figures were so low. Obviously, been in lockdown the whole time, so it was only expected that retail sales would be terrible. But obviously, for whatever reason, the expectation wasn't as bad as the reality. However, PMIs both better than expected. We saw on Friday morning for manufacturing and services, so a bit of good news for the UK economy in that sense. We also spoke about gold last week and that key level of around 1760. We saw that touched on Thursday as US indices were selling off. And again, this is sort of a key level. This is where we saw the initial breakout last year. So we've seen a bit of a bounce on Friday morning. It'll be interesting to see that level holds. If not, obviously, we could potentially see more downside. I think this will coincide if we see more dollar strength. So as Sam was, as we saw in the technical chart Sam was showing, we sort of saw some dollar strength towards the start of the week. However, that sort of started to be reversed towards the end of the week. So it'll be interesting to see if that dollar strength does come back in and if it's sustained. I think if it is, then we'll see gold break through that level and continue lower for now. However, Bitcoin, that just keeps smashing highs. So it went through 50,000 this week. At the moment, it's close to 53,000 and approaching the $1 trillion total value, which is just crazy, isn't it? And we've got ETH also approaching a key level, a new key level, potentially $2,000 per ETH. So yeah, crypto's in a good space at the moment, constantly making fresh highs with very little pullbacks. We also spoke about vaccine numbers last week. So we saw in the UK, at least almost 20% had one dose. Thought it would just be interesting to track week on week. It's now at 24%. So 4% in a week, quite 4% more of the population have had at least one more dose, which is quite interesting. Compare that to the US, which was 10% last week. It's now 12.3%. So although the US are doing more doses, obviously in terms of population per week, it's actually slightly lower than the UK's. We also saw Bumble IPO last Thursday. Just wanted to show some highlights on that. Obviously, another great IPO. I was up 80% from its initial IPO price. This week, I think it's pretty moves quite sideways. We saw the highs of $85 on Friday last week, and then since then it's sort of just slightly cooled off, but it's holding at $74 at the moment. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with that. Current market cap of $9 billion. So it's trading 18 times its revenue in 2019. Also, another sort of landmark, the CEO, Whitney, heard she became the youngest woman to take a company public in the US. She also became a billionaire in the process, and she actually took her 1-year-old son to the opening bell, which is quite interesting. She's quite, she likes to make a statement. She's very for women, and, so she should be. She wants, more women in these sort of key roles. So yeah, quite interesting one to keep an eye out on. She's obviously had a lot of media coverage this week and last week since taking Bumble public. So there's a lot of hype around the Bumble IPO, people giving their opinions, quite a lot of mainstream people coming out saying they think it's overvalued, and then you've got the flip side where people are saying, okay, it may look overvalued traditionally, but the future growth, these sort of apps are the future in terms of dating. So arguing that although it may look overvalued in terms of traditional metrics that are looked at, this future growth and potential sort of justifies that valuation. Obviously, you can compare it to Match Group, who own Tinder. So they're in quite a lot of different dating apps sites. And they're actually up, I looked at their share price, up 260% since their COVID March low last year. But they actually have quite a high level of debt if you look into them. It's quite interesting. And again, they're trading around 8 to 9 times their revenue compared to Bumble, which are 18. So quite interesting little figures there. Obviously, it's just one metric in isolation. Just looking at, thought it was quite interesting to compare the two on that. So yeah, we had a look at some of the charts. Start on Dow Jones. Yeah, so this is last week. So we spoke mainly about how the 31,250 level was a key level for bulls to hold in order to keep this market higher. So this was taken last Friday. We said if that sort of level holds, we should expect to see new all-time highs, which did happen on Friday afternoon. If you go on to the next slide, I'll show you exactly what happened back there. You can then see Friday afternoon had a strong rally if you go to the end of it, so the see those clustered bubbles. Yeah, so just above that last bubble, that one there, it's where we were on Friday. So then you can see that strong rally into the evening, So this is this week, and obviously from Friday we then saw a strong rally into Friday evening, and obviously, like I said, the market was closed on Monday. However, the European markets were quite bullish. However, then Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, we've seen a bit of sideways selling. However, this sort of key level was held. At the moment, we haven't got down to that 31,250. So it's just seeing the bounce is now coming off around 31,300. But again, like I said, traders are continuing to buy the dip. Any dips here, we're seeing indices are getting bought up quite nicely. We're seeing quite strong bounces. So very much bulls are still in control in the sort of US market. We have a look at that compared to the Ftse. So obviously Ftse 100 last week. Again, we saw this sort of key resistance level being held between 6,550 and 6,575. So we saw many touches of that, and just every time it sort of got to that level, it struggled to hold the momentum and sort of sold off quite sharply. However, on Friday, we saw a strong breakthrough. If you go on to the next slide, we'll show you this week. So then we saw that strong breakthrough, and on the hourly, it did initially come back and retest it of that bubble above, and then it just sort of rocketed through. But then this week has sold off again, couldn't sustain that momentum, and it's now retesting that and using that support. So again, if that level holds, I think it will tie in. If the US market holds as well, then we could see again another rally in Ftse. When it did break through that level, obviously you saw quite a strong move to the upside compared to sort of the other markets if we're looking in terms of percentages. However, again, this week just sort of hasn't been able to hold that level, and it's sort of sold back off down towards that initial resistance, and now it's using that support. If it holds the support, we should see another bounce back towards that 6,800 level.
I'm surprised we haven't seen a bit more of an uplift in Ftse, like as in an overall recovery. Like we're so.
Well, that's the thing. Like Friday night into Monday, it was like flying, and then it's like the US market. It's like the US is just like nah, it's just sell Ftse, and then it's like just can't hold. So
Very strange. Do you think the UK economy now, once we're out of lockdown, everything should be starting picking up, and I would have thought that we'd start seeing that getting, factored in.
Yeah, because they are like companies compared to other companies are very much undervalued. It's interesting. So here we go. This is gold on the daily. So you can see the initial breakthrough last June of that 17.6 level. 1760 level. So we saw that massive strong rally where we saw the hype around gold. Is gold going to go back above $2,000, which it did briefly, and then sort of sold off quite sharply. And now we're back at around that 1760 level. Like I said, we saw quite a sharp bounce off of it on Friday early afternoon in the UK. If that level holds, we could see a swift move back up towards 1855. That level definitely needs to hold to keep some sort of momentum in gold. But like I said, I think it's going to be tied to, if we start seeing US dollar strength, I can't see gold holding that level for much longer.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see. There's a lot of analysts as well predicting that gold should be between $2,500 and $5,000 an ounce. So I've got no idea how. I'll be interested to see if it does break through that level with all these predictions starting to come in saying gold is at a high price. It's interesting that we're seeing a stronger US dollar, even though that they're doing massive amounts of printing of money. It makes no sense, really.
Well, I guess the thing is, the reason I think for it is they're expecting inflation to come back in, which will then obviously restrict the Fed. But I think the misconception is that if there is inflation, it's probably not going to be sustained inflation. And the Fed have already said they're happy to have temporary higher levels of inflation, and they're not going to rush and raise rates. So it's an interesting one. There's loads of articles as well that with Bitcoin and cryptos on the rise, that the US dollar is going to lose its foothold as the main reserve currency of the world. So which again, I guess would lead to dollar weakness. if that was the case. So I think there's two conflicting sort of arguments, but yeah, it's an interesting one, especially when we've got Biden talking about the $1.8 trillion stimulus as well. Obviously not printing money, but handing out checks left, right, centre. So
and it's like, what are they going to do with that other than buy sort of like AMC Entertainment and stuff like that?
I saw a horrible tweet if someone had put in, I think 50 grand into GameStop when it was basically at its highs, and it's like still holding, it's down like 87% or something.
Oh,
Like, yeah, went YOLO on my life savings. Like,
yeah, AMC's they were actually, there was a bit of chatter on Zero Hedge, wasn't there, the other day, that Amazon are potential in acquisition talks of AMC, which I actually think could be quite interesting, because you could imagine AMC with all of their cinemas and everything like that, they could literally put all of their prime movies into the cinema before they launch as like their premiere sort of thing. It'd actually be quite an interesting acquisition, wouldn't it?
yeah, definitely.
Yeah, it'd be interesting. They've got like over 1,000 screens.
Any momentum, has it?
Pardon?
It hasn't really caught any momentum, that news.
No, I'm surprised it hasn't actually. I'm surprised it hasn't. I mean, if anyone's thought about acquiring it, AMC, they're in talks with Amazon. It's not like a small firm. It was only like a 10-15% initial move. And it's just, anyone that's shorting AMC, if that ever actually comes out that Amazon's acquired them, they're instantly covering and getting the fuck out. They're not going to hold on to that. So it'd be interesting to see what it does long term.
So yeah, next week, Monday, got Boris Johnson announcement. So sort of coming out of lockdown, how that's going to look, how it's going to work, and I think a lot of airlines are going to be keeping their ears open to seeing if there's any sort of relaxation on how that's going to look going forward in terms of flights, which could, give a boost to some airline shares or potentially the opposite. So I think Monday is going to be an interesting one for sort of shares in the UK. So definitely a big one for the UK coming up on Monday. More just stimulus package through the US. So they're now saying the House are expected to vote on the bill for the 26th of Feb before it goes on to the Senate. So they're still trying to push this through in early March before the 14th, so people can get their checks sooner rather than later. But yeah, so quite a quiet week next week. Other than those two main things, we then got Euro CPI, some GDP numbers, and then UK unemployment figures. Which I don't expect to be very nice. And obviously you've got furlough coming to an end as well. So
that'll be interesting. Do you reckon they're going to extend furlough?
Yes. So when's the budget? The budget it's March, isn't it? I think it's March the 3rd.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that'll be interesting to see. I think that's when they'll announce it. Is it?
I hope they don't extend it.
Yeah. Well,
it's just going to be
whether they have a choice or not. People are now reliant on that. It's like,
Yeah, I suppose they're going to have to extend furlough if they don't allow pubs and restaurants to open.
It's going to come down to politics at the end of the day, isn't it? How many votes are they going to lose if they suddenly just cut off furlough? People soon forget that they gave it to them in the first place. So it's like, why they just cut it off? Which is the problem when you have, politics and economics all so closely merged in with each other.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Anyway, so yeah, interesting week. It has been an interesting week ahead. So yeah.
Awesome, guys. So that's pretty much a roundup from us on what we're focusing on this week. So major currencies, we are looking at US dollar yen to the upside. We are predicting a slight pullback. Pound dollar, again, we're bullish on pound against US dollar. We are predicting a slight upwards move on that as well. And also Euro US dollar, we are expecting a sell-off. So those are the ones that we're watching this week. Obviously, there's lots of news. I think Monday is probably going to play a big factor in the indices, especially with the lockdown coverage with the UK. We'll see how that pans out as well. Like Elliot said, there might be opportunities in airlines. If you want to see what opportunities I'm buying on stocks, then make sure you head over to my Instagram and follow me. We've been putting out a video every week of the stock that I'm purchasing and why. So if you want a bit further knowledge around stock purchases, then go check that out as well. Don't forget to thumbs up, comment, and subscribe, guys, and show your support. Take care, and we'll see you in the next episode.